You showed me that life isn't about contracts and mergers. It's about connection, compassion, and courage. All things you taught me just by being you. Those words weren't spoken in a boardroom. They were whispered in a quiet diner under dimmed lights by a billionaire CEO on one knee asking his fake wife to marry him. For real. What started as a 90-day business arrangement between two strangers, Noah Carter, a guarded man who didn't believe in love, and Elise Bennett, a struggling artist just trying to save her family, quickly unraveled into something neither of them expected: real feelings, real fears, and ultimately, a real love story. From cold contracts to stolen kisses, from staged events to raw confessions. This is not just another romance. This is about how the most unexpected beginnings can lead to the most unforgettable love. If you believe in love that grows in silence, heals through vulnerability, and endures beyond every condition, then this story is for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Lux Stories for more heart-stirring tales like this one. Now let's begin. The skyline of Manhattan gleamed like a painting beyond the crystal windows of Aiden Cross's office. From the 40th floor, the city below looked small, insignificant, but inside the boardroom, tension hung heavy. Clara Monroe, sharp in every sense, tapped her nails against the glass table. "The Tanaka deal is nearly locked in," she said. "But there's one issue," they keep circling back to. Aiden's voice was calm, flat. "Which is your personal life," replied Richard Lang, the oldest member, "or rather your lack of one." Aiden's jaw flexed. "That has nothing to do with business." "Usually, yes," Clara agreed. "But they're traditional family-focused. They want to partner with someone who shares those values. They want to see stability added. James Blake. And they'll be in New York for the next 3 months. You want me to pretend I have a wife?" Aiden concluded, his tone unreadable. "Not pretend. Just look the part," Clara said. "You have 90 days. After that, they make their final call." When the room emptied, Aiden loosened his tie and poured himself a drink. Amber Scotch steady in his hand. Billion-dollar success now hinged on how convincingly he could sell an illusion. His phone lit up. A text from his sister, Maya. "Dinner tonight. You've been too quiet." He sighed and typed back, 8 o'clock. My place across town in a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Elise Carter, 26, stared at a laptop screen where the electric bill glowed in angry red. From the next room, her teenage brother called. "Did you drop off your portfolio today?" "Yeah, Mason," she answered brightly, minimizing the bill. "They said they'll call soon." She didn't say the agency had already filled the role, or that her inbox now held 3 more rejections, or that Mason's latest hospital bill had pushed them even deeper into debt. She walked to the fridge, almost empty. She hadn't eaten again, but Mason needed the nutrition more than she did. The apartment door creaked. Their mother came in weary from a double shift. "Any luck?" she asked gently. Elise forced a smile. "Not yet, but something's coming." And just as she said it, her phone rang. Unknown. "Number hello?" "Elise," a familiar voice said. "It's Maya Cross, her college roommate." The one she hadn't heard from in years. "Maya, I know it's random," Maya said, "but I might have a strange opportunity for you. It could solve a lot of problems." Elise glanced at the bills, then at Mason's worn-out inhaler. "I'm listening," she said. "Let's meet tomorrow. Noon. Wear something sharp." Elise hung up, heart uncertain but curious. Elsewhere, Maya sent another text. "Aiden, I've found someone who just might be perfect." The apartment door clicked shut, just as Elise's mother dropped her bag with a tired sigh. Any word she asked, eyes filled with quiet hope. Elise gave her the usual smile. "Not yet, but something will come through." It was the same promise she repeated every week, an anchor in a sea of uncertainty. Her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. "Hello, Elise. It's Maya Cross." Elise's tired face lit up. Maya had been her college roommate back before Elise dropped out to care for Mason. They'd kept in touch, though their lives had gone in opposite directions. Maya. Wow, it's been forever. I know I'm terrible. Maya chuckled. Listen, are you free tomorrow for coffee? I have something unusual to run by you. Elise glanced at the stack of unpaid bills, the nearly bare fridge, the empty bottle of Mason's medication. Honestly, unusual is exactly what I need right now. Great Noon, Central Garden Cafe, and Elise. Wear something nice. When the call ended, Elise stared at her phone, puzzled. She had no idea that across Manhattan Maya was making another call, one that would flip both their lives upside down. Aiden, Maya said into her headset as she gazed out the tall office windows. I think I've found the answer. For you and for her. The next day, the cafe buzzed with lunch-hour chatter. Elise stepped inside her nerves, bundled beneath the only blazer she owned. Navy blue, slightly faded, paired with dark jeans and a white blouse. It was the same outfit she'd worn to Maya's graduation. Maya stood to wave her over, glowing as always in a dress Elise couldn't even guess the price of. But the man sitting beside her, Elise recognized him instantly. Aiden Cross. The Aiden Cross, CEO of Crossworth Group, ruthless, brilliant, and currently watching her like she was a business proposal. Elise, Maya greeted, pulling her into a quick hug. You look great. Thanks for lying, Elise replied with a chuckle. You know this is my forever blazer. Aiden stood Elise Carter. It wasn't a question. He'd clearly done his research. Just Elise, she corrected, shaking his hand. His grip was steady. Firm, unreadable please, he said, motioning to the chair across from him. She sat acutely aware that the cost of his watch could probably pay her rent for half a year. I'll be direct, Aiden said. After the waitress took their orders, I need a wife. Elise choked on her water. You what? A temporary one, he clarified. Calm as ever, 90 days. Maya jumped in. He needs to appear married for a business deal. It's all for show. Elise blinked, waiting for the joke. None came. And you thought of me. Because you need financial help, Aiden said, straight to the point. And I'm offering generous compensation. In return, I need someone reliable. Private, convincing. Elise's amusement faded. She turned to Maya, brows raised. I told him about Mason. Maya admitted, lowering her voice. And your situation. You had no right. Elise replied, her face flushing with heat. No, she didn't. Aiden agreed, surprising her. But I'm glad she did. I need someone sharp, composed, someone who won't crack under pressure. She believes that's you. Their food arrived, but Elise could barely look at it. You want me to act like your doting wife for 3 months? Yes. In return, I'll wire $500,000 to your account. First half up front, the rest at the end. The number hung in the air like thunder. Elise thought of Mason's medication. Her mother's double shifts. The looming eviction notice on their kitchen table. What exactly, she asked slowly, would that wife need to do? What exactly does this involve? Elise asked, her voice steadier than her racing heart. You'll move into my residence. Aiden replied calmly. Attend events with me. Be seen in public as a couple. Project the image of a stable relationship. He leaned back, his tone cool and distant. Privately, our lives remain separate. I have no interest in complicating this with entanglements. Elise narrowed her eyes. Entanglements? You mean emotional or physical? Correct? He said, not a flicker of emotion crossing his face. This is strictly a business arrangement. I see Elise poked at her untouched salad. And how exactly did a billionaire CEO fall in love with a broke ex-design student from Harlem? Aiden's jaw tightened just slightly. You're Maya's former roommate. We met at her gallery showcase 6 months ago, began dating discreetly. Recently, we decided to marry. That's it. Elise smirked. That's your love story. Simple tends to be more believable. She tilted her head. And after 3 months, we quietly dissolve the marriage. You sign a non-disclosure agreement. You keep the money. You go back to your life. Elise leaned back, studying him. Why me? Why not some professional actress, or I don't know, someone from an escort agency who actually gets paid to pretend I considered it? Aiden said, without shame. But the Hiroshi family is sharp. They value sincerity. They'd see through someone rehearsed. But you have genuine ties to my life through Maya. And more importantly, real motivation to see this through. Just then, Elise's phone vibrated. A message from her mother. Mason's fever spiked. Doctor says we need to bring him in now. Can you come? Her heart dropped. She stood abruptly. I have to go. My brother's not well. Aiden was already pulling out his phone. Take my driver, he said, nodding toward a black Mercedes idling outside. It's faster than a rideshare. Elise hesitated, then snatched her bag. I haven't agreed to anything, I know, he replied evenly. But the offer stands. He handed her a sleek business card. My private number. Call me when you've made your decision. 3 days later. Elise sat in a too-bright hospital hallway staring at that same card. Mason had been admitted with a dangerous infection. His treatment, experimental, urgent, and wildly expensive, came with a bill of over $60,000. Insurance wouldn't cover a cent. Her mother, asleep beside her, looked like she'd aged 10 years from stress. Elise stood and walked into the quiet corridor. Aiden answered on the second ring. Elise, he said. She corrected him automatically. It's just Ellie, and I'll do it. There was a pause. On what terms? I want an advance. $60,000 immediately. Mason's treatment can't wait, and I need time every week to visit my family. Done. I also want to make this clear, Elise added firmly. I won't share a bed with you. This marriage is a formality, nothing more. I never implied otherwise. He said, calm as ever. Anything else? Yes. I want everything in writing. I don't want surprises. My legal team is drafting the agreement. I'll make sure your terms are included. When do you want me to move in? Friday noon. I'll send a car. She turned, watching the nurses checking Mason's monitors. I need 3 days to help my family prepare. Understood. And Elise. Yes. The money will be in your account within the hour. True to his word, a bank notification popped up on her phone exactly 57 minutes later. Crisis for now, averted. But as she watched Mason drift into a sedated sleep, Elise felt a quiet dread settle in her chest. She was about to bind her life to a man who viewed human connection as a contract, a man who could solve a financial disaster with a phone call, a man who would soon be her husband in name only. What Elise didn't know was that Aiden Cross carried secrets of his own, and that this agreement, crafted in logic, was about to unravel in ways neither of them could predict. The marriage took exactly 7 minutes. No music, no vows. Just a sterile courthouse bathed in glass and steel, fitting for a union built on a contract. Elise wore a second-hand white dress she'd picked up from a clearance rack the day before. Aiden unsurprisingly showed up in a charcoal suit, immaculate and impersonal, save for a single white rose tucked into his lapel. You didn't have to do that, Elise said, nodding at the flower. It helps the image, he replied flatly. Maya stood beside them as the silent witness, her smile tight and uneasy, as the judge recited legal phrases that meant nothing at all. When the words husband and wife were spoken, a brief pause followed. Elise looked up, expecting something. Aiden simply reached for her hand and gave it a firm, emotionless squeeze. For the judge's sake. Congratulations, the judge said with a hint of confusion. He wasn't the only one who found it strange. Outside, Aiden checked his watch. I have a meeting in 30 minutes. The movers should have delivered your things to the apartment by now. Maya will take you. That's it, Elise asked, unable to hide the disbelief. We just got married, and you're heading to a boardroom. There was the faintest flicker of amusement in his eyes. Would you prefer a honeymoon? Elise sighed. Never mind. Go save your empire. Without another word, Aiden turned and strode to his car, never once glancing back. He's not heartless, Maya said gently, watching him leave. Well, not entirely. I don't need him to have a heart. Elise said. I just need him to honor the contract. The elevator to Aiden's penthouse was more secure than most banks. It required a fingerprint and a 4-digit access code, both of which Maya helped set up for her. When the doors opened directly into the apartment, Elise stopped cold. It was like walking into a design magazine. Sharp angles, stone finishes, and glass walls overlooking the New York skyline. Everything was white, silver, or gray. No warmth, no chaos, no life. I'm supposed to live here, she whispered. Guest rooms down that hallway, Maya said, pointing. Aiden figured you'd want your own space. Elise exhaled in relief. Your things should already be there. The staff would have unpacked stuff. Maya nodded. Mrs. Whitmore manages the place. There's also a chef who delivers meals a few days a week. Housekeeping comes twice weekly. Elise laughed under her breath. Of course there is. After Maya left, Elise wandered the unfamiliar halls of her new home. Her room alone was bigger than her entire apartment back in Harlem. The bathroom looked like it belonged in a luxury spa, complete with a tub that resembled a soaking pool and a glass shower she could have cartwheeled in. Her personal items were laid out neatly, too neatly. Her thrift store clothes were hanging in a walk-in closet designed for fashion models. Her sketchbooks were stacked carefully next to a high-end writing desk, her scuffed laptop plugged in and ready, her world transplanted into someone else's castle. A knock at the door startled her. An older woman with soft gray hair and wise eyes smiled kindly. Mrs. Bennett. Elise blinked. Just Elise, please, I'm Mrs. Whitmore. I oversee the household. I prepared something light in case you're hungry. Mr. Cross called to say he'll be home around 9. Thank you, but really I can handle myself, it's no trouble, she said, her tone gentle. Then after a pause, she added, If I may, it's nice to see someone new in this place. It's been too quiet for too long. Elise offered a small smile, though her stomach twisted. She had just legally married a man she barely knew, and she would be living in his sterile, perfect world for the next 3 months. What she didn't realize was that this carefully controlled arrangement was already starting to unravel, and neither of them saw it coming. I must admit, Mrs. Whitmore said kindly before heading home for the evening. It's rather nice having someone else in the apartment. It's been too quiet for far too long. Once she left, Elise wandered into the sleek, silent kitchen where a perfectly plated meal waited pan-seared salmon, roasted potatoes, and steamed asparagus. She ate standing by the window, watching the twinkling New York skyline, feeling like a guest in someone else's life. Aiden returned at exactly 9:07. He loosened his tie as he walked in, catching sight of her curled up on the sofa sketchbook. In hand, the city reflected in the glass behind her. You're still awake, he noted, voice low. Elise closed the book and looked up. I wanted to talk about how this is going to work. Day to day. He moved to the bar and poured himself a drink. Would you like one? No, I'm good. He settled into the armchair opposite her. The Watanabe family arrives next week. Before then, we need to build a public image. A few key appearances, dinner at Alinea tomorrow, the Philharmonic on Thursday, and the hospital charity gala Saturday. Elise blinked. The hospital gala. I know your mother works at St. Jude, he said, sipping his whiskey. It adds authenticity to our story. Thought it might help. That caught her off guard. She wasn't sure if she was more surprised by his attention to detail or his subtle consideration. What about during the day, she asked. I can't just sit here playing pretend wife. You're free to do your work. Maya mentioned you're a designer. The guest bedroom was converted into an office, top-tier software dual-screen setup, drawing tablet. Should be everything you need. She stared at him. You did all that. It's practical, he replied. You'll be more convincing if you're not miserable, right? Practical. Well, she said, standing and stretching, I should rest. Big day tomorrow, faking eternal devotion and all. Aiden's lips curved, barely there. I'm told I grow on people like a stubborn mold. Without thinking, Elise grinned. You wish you're more like emotional mildew? To her surprise, he laughed short. Real unexpected. In that flicker of a second, something softened in him. He looked almost human. "Good night, Elise," he said, still wearing that rare smile. "Good night, husband," she replied, testing the word. His smile faltered, just slightly. Something unreadable passed through his gaze before the usual cool professionalism slipped back into place. By morning, Aiden was gone. A note sat neatly on the kitchen counter. "Back by 7. Reservation is at 8. Elise spent the day exploring the penthouse, organizing her new studio. The space was unreal, light-filled quiet, equipped with everything she'd ever dreamed of owning. She lost herself in work until 6:30 when she began getting ready. Her one good dress was a deep forest green, sleek, simple, and timeless. Maya had helped her pick it out for job interviews, but it worked well enough for dinner with a billionaire. As she put on the final touch of lip color, her phone buzzed. "Max, how's the palace?" He teased, his voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "Absurd," Elise whispered, though she was alone. "The bathroom's bigger than our whole apartment." And the husband? Cold, intense, brooding. "All of the above," she murmured with a smile. A pause, then Max's tone sobered. "Are you sure about this?" "Lisa, pretending to be someone you're not living with a stranger." She closed her eyes. "I'm sure about getting you healthy. Everything else is background noise." After they hung up, Elise smoothed the dress over her hips, checked her reflection once more, and stepped out of her room. Aiden was waiting by the fireplace, sipping from a crystal glass. When he turned to look at her, he paused. For a heartbeat, his guarded expression broke his eyes, flicked down, then back up, and something unreadable shimmered in the space between them. She didn't know it yet, but from that moment forward, Aiden Cross would never look at her the same way again. Aiden's gaze traveled from Elise's face to the curve of her dress, lingering for a second too long. "That shade suits you," he said, his voice low, then quickly cleared his throat as if catching himself. "Thanks," Elise murmured suddenly, feeling far too aware of her own appearance. "Is it formal enough for Elijah?" "It's perfect," he replied simply, reaching into the inside pocket of his suit. He pulled out a small velvet box and handed it to her. Inside rested 2 rings, a platinum wedding band and an engagement ring crowned with a radiant diamond that danced beneath the light. Elise blinked. "Is this real?" Aiden frowned. "Of course it's real. Did you think I'd put a fake diamond on my wife's hand? I'm not really your wife," she reminded him, voice soft as she slipped the rings on. "They fit. Maya told me your size," he explained, then held up his own hand, showing a matching band. "We should go." The car's downstairs. In the mirrored walls of the elevator, their reflection stared back at them, him in a suit that looked custom-crafted for his frame, her in a dress that made her feel braver than she was. On their hands, symbols of a love that didn't exist. They looked like a couple, but the silence between them felt heavy and undeniable. Unexpectedly, Aiden spoke. "My parents had a marriage built on necessity." Elise glanced at him, surprised by the personal tone. "My father needed the Whitmore fortune. My mother needed his empire." He continued, eyes not leaving the descending numbers. "They stayed married, but hated each other until the end." "Is that why you've avoided relationships?" Elise asked gently. Aiden's eyes met hers in the mirror. Something shadowed behind them. "It's one of many reasons." The elevator opened before she could ask more. As they walked through the lobby, he placed a hand lightly on the small of her back. His touch was gentle, brief, but strangely grounding. Elise was startled by how easily it came, how unforced it felt, and judging by the sudden stiffness in his shoulders, he hadn't meant for it to feel natural either. Dinner at Elysia unfolded like a perfectly staged play, multi-course perfection, quiet candlelight, soft piano in the background. Elise played her role with care, responding to his subtle cues, mirroring the kind of devotion that came with time. What surprised her was how effortlessly Aiden played the part, his hand resting over hers, his glance lingering as if memorizing her face. He smiled in public in a way she had never seen in private. By the time they returned to the penthouse, her face ached from holding expressions that weren't entirely real. "You did well," Aiden said as the elevator rose. The Pattersons were convinced. The couple at the next table. "He's on the board of Watanabe's American division." Elise narrowed her eyes. "You planned that most things in my life are planned," he said without apology. The next morning, Elise woke to find her inbox filled with a detailed schedule. Public appearances gallery, showings, a charity dinner, all leading up to the orchestra performance on Thursday over breakfast. Yes, he was actually home. She raised an eyebrow. "Do you schedule everything?" "This precisely?" Aiden didn't look up from his paper. "Efficiency is effective." "And exhausting," she countered, sipping her tea. "You ever try leaving a day open just to see where it takes you?" His lips twitched. "Is that your professional advice, Mrs. Cross?" "It's my human advice from someone who doesn't block time to breathe." He laughed, a rare warm sound that made her pause. It softened his face, chipped at the edge of his perfection. "I'll take it under review," he said with a nod. By the end of the week, a rhythm had formed. Mornings were quiet. Sometimes they shared coffee in the sunlit kitchen. Other times he left before dawn. During the day, Elise worked in her makeshift studio. With the upgraded tools, she could finally accept projects she used to turn away. Her creativity blossomed, and for once, her work didn't feel like survival. It felt like purpose. Evenings were a different life. Public dinners, hand-in-hand appearances, carefully rehearsed smiles. Together, they were the image of a powerful, enviable love story. On Wednesday afternoon, as she wandered the penthouse during a rare lull, Elise found herself wondering something strange. What would it be like if none of this were pretend? Elise was wrapping up a call with a client when she noticed it water trailing out from beneath a door she'd never seen open, the only locked one in the entire penthouse. Later that evening, curiosity got the better of her. "What's behind that room at the end of the hall?" she asked over dinner. Aiden paused mid-bite. "It's private." Elise raised her hands. "Didn't mean to pry." He nodded, but his silence after that lingered longer than the conversation had. The next afternoon, Elise returned earlier than expected from a meeting. As she set her keys down, her eyes caught the same trickle of water, only now it had spread further, pooling on the polished floor. Her heart lurched. Without thinking twice, she dialed Aiden. "There's water leaking from your private room," she said urgently. A string of muffled curses came through the line before he responded, "Top drawer of my study. The key's there." She found it, rushed back, and unlocked the door. What she walked into stopped her in her tracks. An art studio. Sunlight poured in through a high window, illuminating canvases propped against the walls, landscapes, abstracts, quiet portraits that hummed with emotion. A splash of water had soaked the corner of the room. A pipe under the sink had burst. She moved quickly, shutting off the valve and mopping up what she could. Most of the art had been spared, but water had splashed onto the large covered canvas, standing at the center. She carefully dabbed it dry accidentally, pulling back the cloth. It was a portrait, a woman's face, warm and kind, painted with astonishing tenderness. It was her Aiden's mother. Elise had seen her in photographs in Maya's apartment, but this was more than a likeness. This was love, grief, memory, and something Elise couldn't quite name. "What are you doing?" Aiden's voice was sharp and sudden. She turned, startled, the towel still in her hand. The pipe burst. "I didn't know what else to do." He brushed past her, his attention drawn instantly to the portrait. His fingers hovered above the canvas, tense and careful. "It's not ruined," she offered softly. He exhaled. "No, you did the right thing." The admission was reluctant but sincere. Elise stepped beside him, looking at the paintings. "I didn't know you painted." "Most people don't." His voice was tight. I keep it that way. They're beautiful, she said quietly. He turned toward her, genuinely surprised. They're flawed. Incomplete. They're honest, she said. That one, especially. She nodded to the portrait. My mother, he murmured. She passed when I was 16. Elise felt her chest tighten. I lost my father at 19, she said. It shifts everything. He looked at her then, and for the first time, the distance between them didn't feel deliberate. It felt like something they were both tired of carrying. Yes, he said, it does. For a while, neither spoke. The sound of the dripping pipe, their soaked socks, the smell of old paint. It all faded beneath the quiet understanding blooming between them. The evening of the Northwestern Memorial Gala arrived. Elise stood frozen in her closet. I have nothing to wear to a gala, she hissed into her phone. Check again, Maya's voice replied mysteriously. And there it was, a garment bag she hadn't noticed before. Inside a deep midnight blue gown that shimmered softly when it caught the light paired with matching heels and a delicate clutch. A pinned note in neat script read, "For appearances." But Elise felt deep down that it meant something more. When she stepped into the living room, Aiden was standing near the windows, his back to her. He turned at the sound of her heels and stopped. For a heartbeat, he didn't say a word. His eyes moved from her face to the neckline of the dress and back again. There was something vulnerable in that moment, something unscripted. He cleared his throat. The dress fits. Elise smiled faintly, pretending not to notice the way his gaze lingered. Good, she said, steadying herself. We wouldn't want to disappoint the crowd, but neither of them could deny it. Something had changed, and it had nothing to do with contracts. The moment Elise stepped into the ballroom, she felt swallowed by glitter and gold. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, the air filled with murmured conversations and the soft clink of champagne glasses. Every pair of eyes seemed to find her. Not her exactly, but the woman who'd married Aiden Sterling, Chicago's most elusive billionaire. Aiden didn't leave her side. His hand rested lightly on her lower back, guiding her through introductions with disarming ease. Just breathe, he whispered at one point, his voice low and steady. You're doing fine. Elise nodded, grateful for the anchor he unexpectedly provided, when she spotted her mother across the room, still in her nurse's scrubs, trying to blend into a sea of designer gowns. Elise hesitated. She's here, she murmured. She's my mother-in-law, Aiden said simply. We should say hello. To her surprise, he was sincere and kind. He praised her mother's work in pediatric care and without blinking promised a generous donation to her hospital's children's wing. Later, as he stepped away to get drinks, Elise's mother leaned in. He's not what I expected. Elise smiled faintly. He surprises me too. When the music changed, Aiden held out his hand. Dance with me. Elise hesitated, then nodded. On the floor, he moved with quiet confidence, guiding her as if the two of them had done this for years. Where did you learn to dance like this? She asked. Prep school, he replied. Obligatory, ballroom training. Elise chuckled. I had to watch YouTube the night before my cousin's wedding. Aiden smiled, really smiled, his eyes crinkling just slightly. You're full of surprises. Elise Monroe, Sterling, she corrected playfully. Elise Sterling, remember. His gaze lingered on her longer than it should have. The way her new name sounded in her voice, it did something to him. His hand at her waist tightened slightly, drawing her in. How could I forget? He murmured. Across the room, a woman watched them with a calculating glint in her eyes. Poised, elegant, dangerous Elise followed Aiden's gaze. Who is she, Vanessa Hargrove? He said, voice clipped. An ex. She wanted what I had. Before Elise could ask more, Vanessa was already upon them. Aiden. She purred, her tone silk and venom. Aren't you going to introduce me to your bride? There was poison in how she said it, dripping with disbelief. Aiden's voice turned cold. Vanessa. This is my wife. Elise. This is Vanessa. Someone I knew a long time ago. Vanessa gave Elise a once-over, her gaze lingering on the dress with barely veiled contempt. Didn't realize charity was your thing now. Aiden. Before Aiden could speak, Elise stepped forward, laying a hand gently on his chest. It's not charity when you're investing in something with real value, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, but I can see how you might struggle with the difference. Vanessa blinked, stunned for half a second. Then she offered a brittle smile. Enjoy it while it lasts, darling. Aiden doesn't exactly have a long attention span. When she left, Elise realized her hand was still resting on Aiden's chest. Beneath it, his heart beat fast and hard. She looked up and found him already watching her. His expression was unreadable, but there was something burning behind his eyes. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get some air. Outside the city sprawled beneath them endless lights and sky. Elise leaned against the railing, the wind cool on her cheeks, her skin still hot from the encounter. I didn't mean to cause a scene, she said. Voice low. You didn't. Aiden's tone softened. What you said, it was perfect. She turned surprised to see a rare warmth in his gaze. Really? Really? He studied her. You keep surprising me. She gave a small smile. Is that a good thing? Aiden looked at her for a long moment, something unspoken flickering in his eyes. I don't know, he admitted. But it's something. They stood in silence, not touching, yet closer than they'd ever been. Behind them, the gala continued, but here on the balcony, it was just them, the hum of the city, and something neither of them could quite name. Aiden's gaze kept drifting to her lips, his breath uneven. We should go back in, Elise whispered, though her feet didn't move. We should. He echoed, but he didn't. Instead, he stepped forward, his hand lifting slowly to brush against her cheek. His touch was tentative, as if seeking permission. Elise should have stopped him. This wasn't part of the deal. There were no clauses in their contract that accounted for moments like this, but when his lips met hers, soft, deliberate, and searching, her resolve melted. She kissed him back without hesitation, her hands sliding to his shoulders, pulling him closer as the kiss deepened. It wasn't the carefully rehearsed display they put on for cameras and charity galas. This was real. Undeniably real. When they finally pulled away, both were breathless. Neither said a word, just stared stunned by what they'd crossed into and what it might cost them. The car ride home from the gala was silent, but the air inside the vehicle pulsed with tension. Elise turned her face toward the window, though her reflection revealed 1,000 emotions she couldn't name. Her fingers pressed lightly to her lips, still warm from Aiden's kiss, her first in years, and somehow the most unforgettable. Beside her, Aiden sat stone still, save for the slight twitch in his jaw and the restless tap of his fingers against his knee. When the car finally eased to a stop outside the building, Aiden broke the silence. We should talk, Elise nodded. Yes, upstairs. In the penthouse, she slipped off her heels. Aiden tugged at his tie, and for a fleeting second, the casual intimacy of the gesture made Elise feel like they were something more than strangers bound by ink and signatures. Drink, he asked, already reaching for the whiskey. Yes, please. He handed her a glass. The warmth of the liquor burned its way down her throat, grounding her. That kiss Aiden started carefully measured was unexpected. That's one word for it, Elise replied, her voice tight. I didn't intend to cross any lines. If I did, I apologize. She stared at him over the rim of her glass. Did you mean it? The question seemed to take him off guard. Aiden hesitated, rare for him. I don't know what I meant, he admitted finally. That's not an answer. It's the truth. He set his drink down and exhaled. This entire arrangement is getting more complicated than it was supposed to be. A small, tired laugh escaped Elise. You're just figuring that out. He almost smiled. Almost. We agreed on boundaries, he said we did. Elise nodded. But that was before. Before what? Before I got to know you. Aiden's expression tightened. You don't know me, Elise. But I'm starting to, she said quietly. You paint portraits of your mother, even though no one knows. You donate anonymously to the hospital where my mom works. You check in on Mrs. Whitaker when she's having a bad day, even if you pretend not to care. He looked away, his guard rising. I see through the mask. Aiden. And what I see is someone who's scared of what feelings can do. He bristled. That's presumptuous, am I wrong? Instead of answering, he turned the question back on her. And what about you? What are you hiding behind all this? The shift caught her off guard. Elise lowered her glass, walked to the sofa, and sank into it. Security, she said softly. The chance to help Max. The peace of knowing I can finally breathe for a while. She hesitated, then added, but maybe I'm hiding from relationships too. From all the parts that never made sense to me. Aiden sat beside her, keeping just enough distance to remind her this wasn't meant to be personal, and yet it was. I've never been good at love, she confessed. I gave everything I had to my family. Dates always fell through. No one ever stuck around once they realized my life wasn't convenient. She paused. Most didn't understand why I had to reschedule, why my brother came first, why I couldn't just drop everything for a dinner. That's on them, Aiden said quietly. Not on you. You really think that's on me? Elise asked softly. Aiden didn't answer right away, but the way he looked at her, steadily, unwavering, felt like an answer in itself. No, he finally said, his voice low. But maybe after enough disappointments, it feels easier not to try. Elise gave a quiet, breathy laugh and glanced away. Exactly. So, Aiden leaned forward slightly, his tone cautious. You've never been in anything serious? She shook her head, her fingers tracing the subtle pattern on the edge of the sofa. I haven't really been in anything at all. He stilled, registering her words. His voice, when it came, was gentler than she expected. You mean… Yes, Elise said, turning to face him. Her eyes were steady even as her cheeks flushed. I've never… You know I'm a virgin. Aiden blinked. For a man who rarely showed surprise, it was perhaps the most startled she'd seen him. I see, he said slowly. Is that a problem? No, he answered quickly, shaking his head. Not at all. I'm just, surprised. You're bright, beautiful, deeply thoughtful. I assumed… He trailed off, seemingly unsure how to finish. Elise shrugged. Life got complicated. I was always taking care of someone else. That part of life just never happened. He was silent again, and she wondered if she'd said too much. Then finally, he spoke. Thank you for telling me. She nodded. After last night, I thought you should know. It feels relevant now. It does. He agreed quietly, because it changes things. Why, Elise asked. We said from the beginning this isn't real. Aiden exhaled and rubbed the back of his neck, the gesture betraying an uncertainty he rarely showed. It changes things because I keep thinking about kissing you again. And I know it shouldn't be like that. Elise looked at him carefully, her heart thudding. And why shouldn't it? Because he said, his voice almost a whisper. Now, your first time shouldn't be with someone you're being paid to play house with. You deserve more than that. Shouldn't that be my choice? She asked quietly. Aiden stood, suddenly putting space between them. It's late. We should get some sleep. Elise watched him retreat, confusion and something deeper churning inside her. Aiden, she called after him. He stopped at the hallway, his back still turned. Yes, I don't regret the kiss. His shoulders stiffened. Good night, Elise. By the time Elise woke the next morning, Aiden was already gone. A note on the kitchen counter informed her he had early meetings and would return late. His handwriting, as always, was precise. The tone, distant. It stung more than it should have. She tried to lose herself in her design work, but her mind kept circling back to the night before. To his gaze, his hands, the softness in his voice when he'd told her she deserved more. When Lily's name lit up on her phone, she answered instantly. "How's married life?" Lily teased. "Complicated?" Elise replied, dropping her head into her hand. That didn't take long. There was a kiss at the gala. Lily paused. Was it just for show? No. It was real. And how do you feel? Confused. Scared, Elise admitted. I told him I've never been with anyone I thought he should know. And he freaked out. Not exactly. He said it changed things, said I deserved better. That sounds like Aiden, Lily said knowingly. He acts like the world is a negotiation, but when it comes to the people he cares about, he gets all noble. I don't need noble, Elise whispered. I just need clarity. Unable to focus. Elise wandered toward the studio. The locked room Aiden had once hidden. The door was open. Now the lock damaged during the flooding, she stepped inside. On the easel stood a new canvas. The strokes were still rough, the lines just beginning to take form. But she recognized the image immediately. It was her, standing on the balcony in the deep blue gown looking out over the city. It took her breath away. She backed out of the room, her pulse quickening. She didn't know what it meant, but it meant something. Later that evening, Aiden stepped into the penthouse, the city lights behind him. Elise was waiting in the living room, heart racing, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Hope. Aiden's expression was unreadable as Elise stood to face him. We need to talk, she said quietly. About what I saw it, she said. The painting. The one of me. His jaw tightened instantly. You shouldn't have gone in there. The door wasn't locked, she replied, stepping closer. I didn't go snooping. I just found it. Why are you painting me, Aiden? He looked away, slowly, setting his briefcase down. Buying time. I paint what stays with me. And I stay with you more than I should. He admitted, barely above a whisper. Elise felt something shift. Last night, you walked away from me, why I was trying to do the right thing. For who, she asked gently. For you, he snapped more sharply than intended. This arrangement, it's temporary, Elise. In 8 weeks, it ends. You go back to your life, I close my deal. That's what we agreed. And what if it's not that simple anymore? It has to be, he said, his voice tight. I don't do relationships, not real ones. Because of your parents. His expression shuddered. Because real relationships fall apart, they distract you, they get messy, they hurt. So you'd rather be alone forever than risk feeling something. I'd rather stick to what I can control, he said. She took a breath. Like your feelings for me. The question was quiet, but landed with force. He didn't respond right away, just stood still, the muscles in his jaw twitching. What I feel doesn't matter, it matters to me. He stepped closer, the tension in the air, thick. And what you want, a brief affair. Something we both regret when this ends. She didn't flinch. Why are you so certain you wouldn't be the one left hurting? That caught him off guard. He turned away, walking to the window, hands in his pockets. His voice dropped. I can't give you what you deserve. Elise. She joined him at the window. Maybe I'm not asking for forever. Maybe I just want this moment to be real. Aiden looked down at her. For a second, the careful walls behind his eyes wavered, desire, fear, hope, all flickering through at once. You don't know what you're asking for. I'm 27, she said, her voice steady. I know what I want. I know what I feel. And your heart. She placed her hand on his chest, right over the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. That's my risk to take. He covered her hand with his grip, warm, tender. That's where you're wrong, he whispered. Your heart is already in my hands. Before she could speak again, a sharp ringtone cut through the moment. He exhaled heavily. The Nakamura call. He muttered, recognizing the distinct tone he'd assigned for business. He looked at her once more, regret and longing warring behind his eyes. I have to take this. Elise stepped back, arms wrapping around herself. We're not finished talking. No, he said, voice rough. We're not. As he disappeared into his office, she stood by the window staring out at the city that had once felt so distant, so impossible. Somehow, she had found something real in the most unreal place imaginable. And now, she didn't know how to protect her heart from it. The Nakamura dinner was scheduled for Friday evening at Aiden's penthouse. An intimate gathering meant to sell the illusion of a warm, grounded home. And for that, Elise knew she had to play her part flawlessly. The rest of the week passed in a blur. Business consumed Aiden's time, leaving their earlier conversation suspended like unfinished music. They circled each other with careful distance, neither sure how to cross the space between what had been spoken and what hadn't. So Elise focused on preparation. She collaborated with the private chef on a menu that merged Japanese and Western elements with grace. She filled the apartment with soft, fragrant floral arrangements, researched cultural etiquette, and even memorized a few greetings in Japanese, wanting everything to feel genuine. Even if their hearts were still trying to figure out what was real. You don't have to go this far, Aiden said, watching Elise adjust place cards on the long dining table. Thursday evening, his tone was casual, but something in his eyes' regret maybe lingered. I'm here to help you succeed, aren't I? She replied, simply smoothing a napkin crease. He looked at her for a moment longer than necessary, then nodded. Yes, I suppose you are. On Friday morning. Elise opened her door to find a small velvet box placed neatly at her feet. Inside lay a single-strand pearl necklace, delicate and luminous. Nestled beside it, a handwritten note. For tonight, thank you for everything. The words were polite, but they stirred something in her that politeness rarely did. She was fastening the necklace around her neck, admiring its soft shimmer against her skin, when her phone rang. It was Max's doctor. The news sent her heart soaring. The new treatment was working better than expected. His numbers were stabilizing. His strength was returning. Elated Elise rushed down the hall toward Aiden's study, eager to share the joy with the one person who'd made the treatment possible. But as she neared the office, she paused. The door was slightly ajar. His voice carried through low, controlled, but laced with tension. This isn't the time, Vanessa, he said sharply. Elise froze. I understand your concerns. Aiden continued, his tone softening slightly. But my decision stands. A silence. My marriage is none of your business. Another pause. No, that's not possible. Elise's breath caught. Was he talking about them? And then came the part that lodged a sharp ache in her chest. I can't deny that Aiden said, his voice barely above a whisper, but it changes nothing. The ache turned to lead. What couldn't he deny? That he still felt something for her. I'll see you Monday at 2. At the office, not here, he added firmly. After that, we're done. The finality of his words was clear, but it didn't settle the knot forming in Elise's stomach. She backed away, the joy about Max, forgotten the necklace around her throat, suddenly feeling too heavy, too much. That evening, the penthouse gleamed with soft lighting and quiet elegance, a perfect backdrop for impressing the prestigious Nakamura family. Elise played her role flawlessly, warm, intelligent, devoted. She charmed them with ease, even gifting a hand-drawn thank you card in Japanese that made Mrs. Nakamura's eyes shine with delight. Your wife is a treasure, Mr. Stephen, Mr. Nakamura said, as they prepared to leave. Aiden smiled, placing his hand lightly at the small of Elise's back. I know, she reminds me every day. The warmth in his voice should have melted her, but she felt nothing but a growing hollowness. As soon as the guests were gone, Elise began gathering the dishes, needing something to keep her hands and heart occupied. "Let the staff handle that," Aiden said gently. "You were incredible tonight." "Thank you," she replied coolly, not meeting his eyes. He frowned. "Elise." "What's wrong?" "Nothing." She reached for another plate. "Elise," he took the dishes from her hands and set them down. "Talk to me." "I heard you," she said quietly. "This morning on the phone with Vanessa." He tensed. "You were eavesdropping. I was coming to tell you about Max's results. Your door was open." Their eyes met the silence heavy. "I'm meeting her for business," he said. "Her father holds shares in one of my companies." "It sounded personal," she whispered. "What exactly do you think you heard?" "She said something about your feelings, and you said you couldn't deny it." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "It's not what you think." "It doesn't matter," Elise said, stepping back. "We don't owe each other those explanations. This is a contract, not a— You really think that's still all it is?" Aiden interrupted, his voice sharp. "I think I was naive to forget," she said. Then reaching up, she unclasped the necklace and placed it gently on the counter. "Thank you for the loan," she added. "It did its job." And with that, she walked away, leaving him staring after her, unsure whether to chase the truth or hide behind it. Elise turned away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, but Aiden reached out, catching her wrist, not with force, but with urgency. "Elise, please." He set his voice deeper, rougher than she'd ever heard. "Just listen." She didn't turn, didn't face him. "Let go, not until you hear the truth." The desperation in his tone made her pause. He took a slow breath, searching for the words. Vanessa didn't call to catch up. She wanted to start over. Said there was no way I could have married someone for real, unless I was still trying to forget her. Elise let out a soft, bitter laugh. "Smart woman. She's wrong." His grip loosened. "What I couldn't deny was that I hadn't tried to be with anyone since her. But I also told her something else. I have moved on." Her heart thudded. Part of her wanted to believe him, but another part, the part that remembered every carefully guarded wall he'd put up, was still bracing for impact. "It doesn't matter," she said. "None of this does. It was never real." Aiden's eyes darkened. Maybe the contract was fake. But this— He stepped closer, voice low. "Whatever's happening between us, it's not pretend. You said nothing could happen." Elise countered, stepping away. "Those were your rules, remember? No emotions, no entanglements." He flinched like she'd slapped him. "Things change," he murmured. "Not for men like you." Her voice was colder than she meant it to be. "You spend your life building walls. Why would I think I'm the exception?" For a heartbeat, he didn't speak. "You're right," he said, finally, his voice flat. This was a mistake. The finality in his tone knocked the wind out of her, but she held her chin high. "I'm glad we agree on something." Elise turned, retreating to the silence of her room. She closed the door behind her, leaning against it as tears pricked her eyes. She'd let herself believe just for a second that there was more. That Aiden could feel something real, but she should have known better. The weekend was a slow ache. Aiden vanished into meetings and boardrooms. Elise spent time with her family, clinging to the comfort of Max's steady recovery and her mother's quiet warmth. As they dried dishes together on Sunday evening, her mother broke the silence. "You love him." Elise blinked. "What?" "No, I've been your mother too long to not recognize that look in your eyes." She passed Elise a plate. "You talk about him like he's a problem you can't stop trying to solve." Elise swallowed hard. "It's complicated." Her mother smiled softly. "Love usually is, but that doesn't make it any less worth holding on to." "How do you know when it's real?" Elise asked, barely above a whisper. Her mother's answer was quiet, but certain. "When walking away hurts more than staying." Monday morning, Elise made her choice. She packed a small bag. The deal was almost done. The Nakamura family had been won over. Aiden didn't need her anymore. And honestly, she couldn't bear staying in a place that confused her more with every passing day. She was folding the last of her clothes when the door creaked open. Aiden stood in the doorway, fresh from his meeting, still sharp in his suit, but his eyes were fixed on the half-packed suitcase going somewhere. Elise didn't look up. "It's time. I don't recall that being your call to make. I'm breaking the contract. I won't take the rest of the money." Aiden stepped into the room, his voice tight. "This is about Vanessa." "No," she said, facing him now. "It's about us. This arrangement, it's too messy, too confusing." His jaw tensed. "What exactly is confusing?" Elise laughed bitterly. "Really, 1 minute we're performing like professionals and the next you're sketching me in your studio and kissing me on balconies like you mean it." "I did mean it," Aiden said, his voice rising. She froze. "I think about you constantly," he continued, walking toward her. "I haven't picked up a brush in months, Elise, and now I can't not paint you. I don't know how to go back to pretending like you don't matter." His words hit her like a wave. Honest, raw, unpolished in a way Aiden rarely allowed himself to be. "So what do you want from me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Another few weeks of make-believe, or something real?" He stood in front of her now, close enough to touch but still hesitant. "I want clarity," he whispered. "And if I'm honest, I want you." And suddenly, for the first time, Elise wasn't sure if she had the strength to walk away. "Stop," Aiden said, his voice, rough eyes dark with something deeper than anger. "Because you've stirred something in me I thought I buried long ago. Is that clear enough?" Elise stared at him, stunned. She hadn't expected him to say that. She hadn't even dared hope. "I kept telling myself this was physical." He went on, words tumbling like a confession he could no longer contain. "That once our deal ended, all of this would fade, but it hasn't. It's getting stronger. And I hate it, because I don't do this, Elise. I don't let people close because everyone leaves," she whispered. He flinched as if she'd torn something wide open. "My mother died. My father moved on with a new wife and another child. Like I was a memory, Vanessa wanted my name, not my heart. Everyone I've ever let in has either left or betrayed me." There was so much rawness in his voice it made her chest tighten. "I'm not them, Aiden." "No," he said, shaking his head, voice low. "You're worse because you make me want things I promised myself I'd never want again. You make me hope, Elise, and hope is dangerous." Her voice trembled with emotion. "If you want me to go, say it, tear it all down, but don't lie to yourself just to keep feeling safe." Aiden turned away, jaw clenched. "The contract is void. You'll still receive the payment. Take it and go if that's what you want." "I don't want your money," Elise said, stepping forward, her voice rising. "That stopped being why I was here a long time ago, and you know it." He turned to her, his face clouded with pain and conflict. "Then why are you here?" "Because I want the truth. Not convenience, not politeness, not your walls. I want you to be honest with me and with yourself." "What does it matter?" he asked bitterly. "What I want has never mattered." "It matters to me," Elise said, close enough now that he could see the fierce honesty in her eyes. "Tell me what you want. Not what makes sense. Not what's strategic. What do you want, Aiden?" There was silence, deep, heavy, then his voice hoarse, breaking. "I want you, not because of a contract, not for a merger. I want you in my life, in my arms, in every version of my future. I want things I never thought I deserved." Elise felt her breath catch. "Why do you think you don't deserve them?" she asked softly. "Because I don't know how to love. I'll mess this up. I will hurt you eventually." "Maybe I'll hurt you too," she replied. "That's what love risks, but I'd rather try and fall than run and always wonder what could have been." He stared at her like she was sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Then he whispered the words that finally shattered his last defense. I don't want to lose you. Her heart broke a little at the vulnerability in his voice. Then stop pushing me away, and if we fail, then at least we were brave enough to try. Slowly, as if unsure it was allowed, he reached up and touched her cheek. The gesture was so tender, so reverent, it made her heart ache. I don't want you to leave, he murmured. Then ask me to stay, she whispered, not as your contract wife, as me. Time seemed to pause, and then barely audible, but clear as day. Stay, he said, please. And that one word, please, spoken by a man who had built his life on control and distance, undid everything. The contract no longer mattered. The roles, the performances, all of it faded. What was left was two hearts standing bare before each other, finally choosing not to pretend. The next morning, as the soft light spilled through the penthouse windows, Elise sat at the kitchen counter. I need to visit my family, she said gently. Just for a few days. Max has a follow-up appointment. I promised I'd be there. Aiden stood silently across from her, his posture unreadable, but his eyes gave him away. When will you come back? He asked quietly. It was such a simple question, but behind it was a silent plea. Will you come back to me? Elise reached for his hand. Soon, she promised, but when I do, I need us to be all in. No more halfway. Aiden nodded once, then I'll wait. And as she stepped into the elevator, neither of them knew exactly what the future held. But for the first time, they were walking toward it, not as strangers, but as something more. Friday, Elise suggested, hesitating slightly. If that's okay. Aiden gave a soft nod. This is your home too. For as long as you want it to be. The word home hung in the air. No longer a practical term in a temporary arrangement, it had begun to mean something entirely different. Something real. Something lasting. As Elise quietly packed her suitcase this time, not out of fear, but by choice. Aiden stood in the doorway, leaning on the frame as though unsure whether to come closer. Elise, he said softly. She looked up. Yes. We're not pretending anymore, are we? There was a vulnerability in his voice that disarmed her completely. The careful mask he always wore had slipped. No, she said, we're not. He gave a slight nod. Part. Relief. Part. Fear, and offered a small smile. Safe travels that night with Elise gone. The penthouse swallowed him whole. Aiden filled his schedule with meetings chasing deadlines like ghosts. But when evening came and he stepped back into the apartment, the silence hit him with a weight he hadn't prepared for. Not just quiet, emptiness. He wandered into her room, the space she'd slowly made her own. Her sketchbook lay open on the desk. A half-read novel rested by the lamp. A cardigan hung casually on the back of her chair, and the scent of her light floral lingered in the air like a memory. He sat on the edge of her bed and stared into the stillness. A month ago, he wouldn't have noticed the difference. Now he felt the absence of her, like a missing part of himself. His phone buzzed. It was Lily. How's it going with Elise? He stared at the message thumb hovering over the keyboard before finally typing, She's visiting her family. I asked her to stay when she comes back. Not for the contract. For me, Lily's response was immediate. Finally. And she said yes. But I don't know what happens next. You figure it out together, big brother. That's what love is. Love, a word he'd spent years running from, suddenly felt like the only thing that made sense. The next day, he found himself back in the studio, staring at the unfinished painting of Elise brush in hand. He lost himself in the quiet work, shading in the flecks of her eyes, the gentle curve of her mouth, the softness of her presence. By the time he stepped back, it wasn't just her likeness on the canvas. Somehow, without realizing it, he'd painted the way she made him feel safe. Seen whole. That night he called her, Is everything okay? she asked, her voice laced with concern. Aiden exhaled the sound, soft, almost fragile. Yes, I just wanted to hear your voice. There was a pause, then a quiet, warm response. I'm glad you called. They talked for over an hour about Max's progress, her current project, the weird soup her mom had made, nothing earth-shattering. But when they said goodnight, Aiden felt lighter than he had in years. On the third day, he stopped denying it. He missed her. He missed her laugh echoing down the hall, her sketches scattered on the coffee table, the way she mocked his color-coded planner and then smiled like she was proud of him anyway. He wandered into a room he rarely entered, his father's old study. In the back of a drawer tucked in a velvet box was his mother's engagement ring, a deep emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds. She'd left it for him with a note he'd never been brave enough to read until now. For when you find the one who makes your heart feel like home, he'd never thought he'd use it. Until Elise. That evening he dialed Lily. I need to see you, he said. What's going on? I think I'm in love with her, he confessed. Voice trembling. Lily didn't even hesitate. You think she said laughter and relief dancing in her tone. Aiden, you're already gone. She's the one, isn't she? The moment Andrew sat down across from him, Noah didn't deny it. I don't know how to do this, Drew. How to be what she needs. Andrew gave a soft chuckle. Have you considered the possibility that maybe you already are? Noah looked doubtful. Elise doesn't want perfect, Andrew said gently. She just wants you, real honest, present. I've spent my entire life avoiding real, Noah murmured. Andrew squeezed his shoulder. Then maybe it's time to stop running. Friday came with the kind of nervous energy Noah hadn't felt in years. He kept glancing at the clock obsessively, checking his phone. Elise had texted she'd be back by 6. At 5:30, he was pacing the living room, rehearsing everything he needed to say. At exactly 6:03, the elevator chimed and Elise stepped into the penthouse. She looked tired, but happy, her face lighting up when she saw him. You're here, she said with surprise. I half expected you to be buried in some investor meeting. I cleared my schedule. Noah said honestly, I wanted to be home when you arrived. Her smile softened as she set her bag down. Thank you. A quiet, almost fragile silence settled between them, the weight of things unsaid pressing in. How's Liam? He asked gently. Better, she said, visibly brightening. His doctor thinks he might be in full remission by Christmas. Noah's chest eased with her joy. That's amazing news. It is, she nodded, then took a steadying breath. Noah, while I was gone, I did a lot of thinking. Me too, he replied quietly. And there are things I should have told you a long time ago. He motioned toward the sofa. They sat close enough to touch, but both hesitating. Noah was the first to speak. My parents' marriage. It wasn't just a formality. It was toxic. He began, voice tight. My father was all about control image. Everything had to serve a purpose. My mother, she was the opposite. Creative kind, full of life. But he crushed that out of her. Elise sat in silence, listening as the cracks in his walls began to show. She got sick when I was 17. Cancer. My dad had already moved on by then. Literally. He started a new family while she was dying. His voice broke slightly. I promised myself that day I'd never be like him, that I'd never use someone or pretend to love just to get something in return. You're not him, Elise said gently. I was, Noah admitted. At least at the start. Our arrangement. It was a transaction. I needed you. You needed the money. But then, he looked into her eyes. Somewhere along the way, you became real to me, and that scared the hell out of me. Because I've spent every year since she died making sure I'd never need anyone again. His voice cracked as he added, But I need you, Elise. And I don't know how to live in this place anymore, if you're not here. Elise's eyes widened, shimmering with emotion. Noah held up a hand gently. Let me finish. He took a breath, steadying himself. I'm not good at this. At feelings, at vulnerability. But you make me want to try. You make me believe I could be more than a man behind a desk. You make me want a life. Her voice was barely above a whisper. What kind of life? He reached for her hand, one with you in it. A life that starts messy and uncertain and terrifying, but honest. Real. A marriage that isn't built on contracts, but on something we choose. Elise's eyes filled with tears. When I agreed to this, I never imagined we'd end up here. Neither did I, he whispered. But we are. And I don't want to go back. She squeezed his hand tightly, tears slipping down her cheek. I was scared I'd be just another signature on a dotted line. Another convenient choice. Noah leaned forward, resting his forehead gently against hers. You could never be just business to me. Not anymore. Noah reached out gently, wiping a tear that had slipped down Elise's cheek. I don't know how to do this perfectly, he said softly. I'll make mistakes. Probably a lot. But if you're willing to be patient with me, I want to try. You don't have to be perfect, Elise replied, echoing words she hadn't even realized she'd once heard from Andrew. I just need you, all of you, even the parts that are afraid. Noah leaned in, pressing his forehead gently to hers, his voice barely a whisper. I think I'm falling in love with you, Elise Morgan. And for once, that doesn't scare me. Elise smiled through her tears. Good, because I'm already there. I think I've been in love with you for longer than I wanted to admit. When their lips met, it wasn't like before, not urgent, not desperate. This kiss was quiet. Soft, full of trust, a vow whispered without words, blooming in the gentle space between them. As they pulled apart, Elise laughed lightly, brushing her fingers along his collar. So, what do we do now? Rip up the contract? Noah's eyes danced with warmth. Actually, he said, I was thinking we renegotiate. Something more long-term. Maybe for life. I'm open to hearing your proposal. She teased her heart full with something she finally dared to call love. The weeks that followed reshaped more than just their routines. They reshaped them. No longer bound by timelines or signatures, their home slowly shifted from luxury showcase to a haven. There were mismatched coffee mugs in the kitchen. A soft throw Elise loved, draped across the back of the couch, art supplies on the dining table, evidence of a life not curated but shared. One night, Elise was still working in her office, finishing illustrations for a children's book project. Noah appeared in the doorway holding 2 mugs of tea. You've been in here for hours, he said, placing a cup beside her. Just need to wrap up this spread, Elise replied, stretching with a groan. Noah stepped behind her and began massaging her shoulders, his hands gentle and steady. These are wonderful, he murmured, eyes scanning the playful characters on her screen. A story about a small rabbit who longed to touch the clouds. Thanks, Elise said, leaning into his touch. I like it, but I keep thinking about my old idea, the one about the little girl and her magic paintbrush. Noah looked at her surprised. You still think about that? She smiled. You remember? I remember everything you tell me, he said simply without fanfare, but the words made her chest ache in the best possible way. You should finish that story, he continued, sitting on the edge of her desk. You should publish it, maybe someday. Elise chuckled, brushing her hair back. It's not that simple. Noah, publishing doesn't just happen. I'd need an agent, a publisher willing to take a risk on someone no one's ever heard of. I might know someone, he said casually. Elise raised a brow. Of course you do. But before she could tease him further, his expression turned serious. Look, I'm not saying this because of us. I'm saying it because your work deserves to be seen, and not because of who you're with, but because it's good. The next morning, as Elise stumbled sleepily into the kitchen, she found a business card beside her coffee mug, Eliza Montgomery, senior editor, Brightbrook Children's Books. She stared at it stunned. "She's expecting a call from you," Noah said, appearing behind her with his own cup. "Just to review your portfolio. No strings, no guarantees, just a conversation." Elise blinked. "She doesn't owe you anything, no," Noah said firmly. "Her company's not tied to mine in any way. If she likes your work, it'll be because it speaks for itself." Elise looked at the card again, then up at the man standing beside her. And for the first time in a long time, she felt something more powerful than hope belonging. Elise held the business card between her fingers, her heart racing with a mix of anticipation and fear. "What if she hates it?" she murmured. "Then you try again," Noah said simply, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. But she won't. To Elise's amazement, Eliza Montgomery didn't just like her illustrations, she adored them. The concept for Mia and her magic brush struck a chord, and within 2 weeks, Elise was signing her first official publishing contract. "I still can't believe this is real," she whispered to Noah that night as they toasted with champagne under the stars. "This has been my dream since I was 7. You made it real." Noah replied, his voice low and full of pride. "This is your talent, your vision. But you believed in me enough to open the right doors," Elise said, placing her glass down and meeting his gaze. "You put your name on the line for me. I'd do it again," Noah said quietly. "Seeing you succeed, it means more than any deal I've ever closed." She studied him in the soft glow of the balcony lights. This man who had once been all edges and armor now standing in front of her with his heart wide open. "You're not the same man I met 2 months ago?" she said softly. A gentle smile tugged at his lips. "Maybe that's because 2 months ago I hadn't met you." With that, Elise stepped into his arms, the world fading around them. "I love you," she said. No fear, no hesitation. Noah froze for half a second, then cupped her face as if she were something fragile and precious. "I love you too." He breathed emotion, roughening his voice. "More than I ever thought I could." The kiss that followed wasn't passionate or rushed. It was steady and sure, like a vow spoken without words. When they finally pulled apart, Elise rested her head against his chest, letting the sound of his heartbeat settle her. "Move into my room," Noah said suddenly. She blinked up at him. "Are you serious? I want you there," he replied, unwavering. "No more separate rooms, no more pretending. I want to fall asleep beside you every night, and wake up beside you every morning for as long as you'll let me." That night, in the quiet stillness of their now shared bed, Elise lay beside the man who had started out as a stranger in a carefully orchestrated charade. Somehow, in the midst of lies, a deeper truth had taken root, from debt and struggle, to dreams within reach, from solitude, to love, all of it, because she had taken a leap with a man she never imagined she'd fall for. Do you believe love can begin in the most unexpected places? Subscribe to Soul Luck Stories for more heartfelt journeys of unlikely beginnings and life-changing connections. As their bond deepened, a quiet question lingered between them, the ticking clock of their original 90-day contract. Despite their love, despite sharing a home and a life, the terms still hovered in the background. One night as they sat reviewing the final pages of Elise's children's book, she finally voiced the thought, "What happens when the contract ends?" Noah looked up slowly, confusion flickering across his face. "You mean legally?" She nodded. "Our marriage was supposed to last 90 days. After that, we file the papers. You get your merger. I walk away." His jaw tightened. "Is that what you want?" "No," Elise said quickly. "God, no." "But what about the Nakamuras?" They're going back to Tokyo after the merger is signed next week, he said gently. Whatever happens to our marriage after that, that's our decision, no one else's. So, she hesitated, we just stay married. Unless you're dying to divorce me. He teased a flicker of uncertainty, hiding beneath the smile. Elise tilted her head, her voice soft but sure. Not even a little. Elise caught the flicker of uncertainty in Noah's eyes. She squeezed his hand gently. That's not what I meant, she said quickly. We got married for business reasons, remember? Maybe we should start over, do it right. Noah set her sketchbook aside, his expression turning serious. Elise, are you saying you want a real proposal? A real wedding? She laughed nervously, feeling her cheeks flush. I know it sounds silly. But yeah, maybe it's not silly. Noah said, his voice softening. You deserve the whole thing, the proposal, the dress, the music, the vows. If that's what you want, I don't need a fairy tale, she said quietly. I just want something real, something that belongs to us, not a contract, not a performance. Noah lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. Then that's what you'll have. Not today. Not yet, he added with a mischievous gleam in his eye. But soon. Because some things are worth waiting for. As Elise returned to her work, her heart beat a little faster, not just from love, but from the wonder of what Noah might be planning. The deal with the Nakamura group was finalized on a crisp, sunlit morning exactly 90 days from the day Noah and Elise had signed their courthouse papers. The reception that followed was elegant and understated a celebration of success and resilience. Elise stood beside Noah, no longer playing a part, but standing tall as his partner in every sense. Congratulations, Mr. Nakamura said as he offered a formal bow. Your patience and dedication made this partnership happen. Thank you. Noah replied, his arm snug around Elise's waist. But I've learned the strongest partnerships aren't built in boardrooms. Mr. Nakamura smiled knowingly. True. Achievement means little if you have no one to share it with. As the crowd thinned and the music faded, Noah leaned closer to Elise. Are you free tomorrow night? Elise raised an eyebrow, amused. Do I have a choice? Nope. He grinned, dressed casually. Should I be worried? He smirked, curious. Maybe. The next evening, Noah's driver pulled up in front of a place Elise hadn't seen in years. Her eyes widened. You brought me to Millie's. You once told me you worked here all through high school, Noah replied. Said it helped you buy your first sketch pad. Elise blinked at him. I didn't think you were actually listening. I remember everything you say. Inside the diner looked exactly as she remembered it. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the scent of French fries in the air. What she didn't expect was the sight of her mother, Max and Lily already seated at the largest booth. What is this? She asked, confused but smiling. Just dinner, Noah said casually. With family over burgers and cherry pie, Elise's world felt small in the best possible way. They shared stories, teased her about her teen years, and Noah soaked it all in, filing away each memory with quiet joy. As dessert wound down, Noah stood up to refill his coffee, but instead of returning to the booth, the lights dimmed. Soft music played through the jukebox. Noah came back, not with a coffee but with intention. He took Elise's hand and led her to stand. Her heart thundered in her chest. 90 days ago, he began, his voice steady and clear. I asked you to marry me for all the wrong reasons. It was a business deal, nothing more. Or so I thought. A hush fell over the diner as Noah took a deep breath. What I didn't expect was that you would completely change me. You taught me that life isn't about control or contracts. Elise's eyes filled with tears, her breath catching as she realized what this was. And somehow he said, in the middle of pretending I found something real, life isn't about deals and deadlines. Noah said, his voice echoing softly through the hushed diner. It's about connection, kindness, courage. All things you taught me just by being exactly who you are. From his jacket pocket, he retrieved a small velvet box, this one different from the sleek case that had once held their contract rings. Then slowly, he knelt in front of her. A quiet gasp rippled through the diner. Our first wedding. Noah continued opening the box to reveal a gleaming emerald ring framed by delicate diamonds was rooted in necessity. This time, I want our second to be about love. He looked up, his eyes unwavering. Elise Bennett, will you marry me again for real? Elise's breath caught as she stared at the ring. Recognition dawned. Is that your mother's? He nodded. She left it for the one who made my heart feel like home. His voice faltered slightly, thick with emotion. That's you, Elise. It's always been you. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, yes, then louder, stronger, yes. As Noah slid the ring onto her finger, replacing the one they'd worn for show, the entire diner broke into applause. He stood and swept her into a kiss so full of warmth and hope, it made the rest of the world fade away. I love you, he murmured against her lips. No contracts, no conditions, just us. 3 months later, their second wedding took place in the botanical garden where Elise's father had once proposed to her mother. This ceremony, unlike the first, was everything they hadn't dared hope for: intimate, joyful, real. Even Lily wept when Noah read his vows. You saw me when I was hiding. He told Elise, his voice rough with feeling. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You loved me before I even knew how to love you back. And I vow to spend every day becoming the man you always saw in me. 1 year later, the soft pastel walls of a nursery were alive with color murals from Mia and her magic brush. Elise's now best-selling children's book. She stood in the doorway, one hand on her rounded belly, the other tracing the air in awe of all that had changed. Inside, Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, scowling at the half-assembled crib. This part goes here. No wait, he muttered, flipping the instruction manual upside down. The great and mighty Noah Carter. Elise teased, leaning against the doorframe, brought down by baby furniture. He grinned at her. His usual sharpness softened. If my board saw this, I'd never hear the end of it. They already think I've gone soft. Have you totally, he said without shame. He reached out and laid a gentle hand over hers on her belly. Just then, their daughter gave a strong kick beneath their joined palms. She's fierce, Noah said proudly, like her mama. And stubborn Elise added with a smile, like her dad. He agreed, pulling her into his arms with careful tenderness. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the beat of a heart she'd once sworn she'd never fall for. Did you ever imagine, she asked quietly, that this is where we'd end up? When you handed me that contract. Not in a million years, Noah said, but I wouldn't change a single second, not even the part where you were cold and impossible. Maybe just shorten that phase, he joked, making her laugh. They sat in peaceful silence as the golden afternoon light spilled across the nursery floor. I love you, Mrs. Carter. I love you too, Mr. Carter, she whispered. The contract may have expired, but this. We're just getting started. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the life they were building, Elise knew with certainty sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most extraordinary love stories. Of course. Here's your outro, crafted in a warm, emotional tone to leave a lasting impression on the audience. From a contract signed in silence to a love story spoken in every unguarded moment. Noah and Elise's journey reminds us that sometimes the heart finds its way through the most unlikely paths. What began as a lie became their truth. What started as a deal became their destiny. And in the end, it wasn't the contract that defined them, but the love they dared to fight for. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please like the video, share it with someone who still believes in love, and subscribe to Soul Lux Stories for more deeply moving tales that remind us love doesn't always arrive when we expect it, but it always finds a way. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.